college graduate. Might be a good man for you. Hey, engineer.
Yeah?
This is the miner I was telling you about.
How are you?
Hey, don't I know you?
He was Hollywood's quiet hero, the man every audience trusted. But what if the man behind the roles was nothing like the one on screen? What if Glenn Ford, America's favorite father, lover, soldier, spent his whole life running from the very things he played so perfectly? This isn't just a story about a fading star. It's about a man who built a legacy out of silence and paid for it in the shadows. Ready to uncover the truth? Because once you see the full picture, you may never look at Glenn Ford the same way again. Glenn was born on May 1st in 1916 in Portneuf, Quebec. He descended from celebrated roots, one branch tied to Canada's John Macdonald, another to U.S. President Martin Van Buren. His family moved to Santa Monica when he was 8, and beneath California's sun, he discovered the stage. He worked labor jobs, the embodiment of blue-collar grit, yet held dreams of stardom. Studios like Columbia Pictures didn't initially see his potential, but by 1939, Glenn was under contract alongside William Holden, and he was destined for greatness. On screen, he was the ordinary man thrust into extraordinary circumstances. Noir anti-hero in Gilda, tough-as-nails teacher in Blackboard Jungle, steadfast cop in The Big Heat, and later Superman's father. In 1958, he topped box office charts and was now a genre-spanning star with over 100 films to his name. But off-screen, his life was anything but harmonious. How does the image of calm strength conceal a heart fractured by emotional distance? He married Eleanor Powell in 1943. She gave up her illustrious dancing career to build a life with him, and together they had son Peter. Yet Glenn's restlessness drove him into addiction and affairs, as many as 143 associations, including with Marilyn Monroe and Judy Garland, all meticulously recorded on secret phone tapes. He craved love, but feared commitment, cutting himself off even from his own family. Peter would later say, "He was my father biologically, but he wasn't there." Then there was Rita Hayworth, a bond that spanned over 4 decades. Their connection began on The Lady in Question, 1940, and combusted with Gilda in 1946. They never married, yet they shared a life. He bought a house next door to hers in 1960. A discreet gate between their backyards allowed private breakfasts and solace away from paparazzi. But can love survive when it lives in shadows, never stepping into the light? Peter's 2011 memoir, Glenn Ford, A Life, drew from letters, diaries, and tapes. He exposed the clandestine affair with Rita. She became pregnant during filming of The Loves of Carmen and traveled to France for an abortion, and revealed the scope of Glenn's ledger-like record of romantic entanglements. By 1959, Glenn and Ellie divorced, and she devoted her remaining years to charity and motherhood until her death in 1982. Glenn barely appeared at her funeral. He felt like a ghost wandering outside a life he once inhabited. As the lights dimmed on his career, he found solace in illness, with serious strokes leaving him frail. He was confined to a wheelchair, his mind fogged by memory loss, and was reliant on a nurse named Pauline Kernan. That's when the final betrayal unfolded. Pauline placed a "do not resuscitate" order without his consent, even as Glenn was still conscious and was still fighting for life. Peter, sensing deceit, entered the courtroom to protect his father. The DNR was revoked, Pauline removed as proxy, and Glenn's right to live fiercely reclaimed. In an unexpected turn, Glenn asked Peter to move in, not as a famous actor, but as an aging father who at last just wanted to be seen and understood. One afternoon, Glenn looked at his son and asked, "Do you remember when you were little?" And in that moment, decades of silence broke, and it was just enough to let the first words of forgiveness slip out. He died quietly in hospital at 4 p.m. on August 30th, 2006. No stage lights or final bow, just the lingering echo of a man who had given everything to his image, but little to his own heart. His ashes were buried alongside his beloved dog in Santa Monica. Peter's words rang hollow. "My father was incredibly famous until he died, and then he drifted into ambiguity." It raises a haunting question. How does a man so deeply etched into the fabric of Hollywood vanish from cultural memory so easily? Unlike stars with tragic endings or headline-making scandals, Glenn Ford slipped away quietly. No tabloid frenzy, biopic campaigns, or monuments. Perhaps it's because his tragedy wasn't performative. It was internal, a silent collapse rather than a public explosion. And in a world obsessed with noise and spectacle, the quiet men are the first to be forgotten. Yet the mystery was not solved in headlines or fanfare. It was revealed through tapes, court records, and Peter's fierce devotion. New sources shed fresh light. The case against Pauline revealed in court records how easily autonomy can be stripped away from the vulnerable. Peter's memoir gave intimate voice to suppressed feelings. A 10-minute television documentary even revealed the scandalous abortion secret with Rita, a story Peter chose not to include in his own memoir, protecting his mother and Rita's memory. Glenn was a deeply flawed human, beyond the cinema's black and white. In a twist which is almost too surreal, another Glenn Ford, a black man, spent 3 decades on Louisiana's death row, only to be exonerated in 2014, dying shortly after release amid denial of compensation. 2 Glenn Fords, both victims of misconception and of systems failing them, one by love and the other by law. In the stillness of cinematic farewell, film historians have begun to study his works again. They see not the smooth confidence of a box office king, but a man tempered by regret, bearing concealed scars. His performances in Blackboard Jungle now seem haunted by a father's regret. His stoic heroism in 3:10 to Yuma feels prescient of his own inner turmoil. On Reddit, the mystery of Glenn Ford has seen a quiet resurgence. Threads in subreddits like r/Old Hollywood and r/True Film have become digital confessional booths where cinephiles and amateur historians swap stories, upload long-lost interviews, and debate whether Glenn's final years were tragic, just, or deserved. Some users even unearthed audio snippets from old talk shows and lesser-known interviews once archived in VHS collections, now digitized and dissected. What's striking is the divide. Some see him as misunderstood, a product of old Hollywood repression. Others argue he never paid for his silence and only benefited from it. A documentary is reportedly in early development, led by an independent team with ties to Peter Ford's archive. While no release date has been confirmed, early access rights were discussed during the 2025 AFI Docs Festival, suggesting Glenn's legacy may soon be reevaluated for a modern audience. Whether it's a biography, streaming special, or audio documentary using Glenn's infamous recordings, one thing is clear. The quiet man of the silver screen may finally have his full story told, not just by critics, but by a son who chose to speak when his father never could. And so, his story compressed into a breathless narrative, unspools like one of his films. A man who embodied integrity on screen, yet betrayed it off screen. A lover who fell short of love's promise, yet could not completely relinquish its call. A father who hid behind silence until illness forced confession. His story highlights a question: can fame justify emotional abandonment? To watch Gilda is now to see a man whose cool detachment masks fierce longing. To re-watch The Big Heat or Blackboard Jungle is to sense the pain that lies beneath the heroism. And when he turns to the camera as Superman's adoptive father, who is gentle and hopeful, you feel the ache of a man whose last role was to seek forgiveness and not applause. Hollywood may have moved on, but now we remember Glenn Ford, beyond just as the actor from old films, but as a real person shaped by flaws, regrets, and complicated choices. He was more than just a legend on the screen. He was a man caught between who the world thought he was and who he really was inside. His life didn't end with a dramatic finish or clear resolution. It ended quietly, with questions left unanswered and emotions still hanging in the air. And maybe that's what makes his story so powerful, because it feels real, unfinished, and deeply human. Maybe that's the truth Glenn Ford left behind, that silence isn't always noble. That love, if delayed too long, can't be repaired with a whispered memory. But also, maybe forgiveness, even when imperfect, it still matters. Behind the cool resolve of a Hollywood star, there was a man still reaching, aching and hoping that someone might understand him before the credits rolled. And now, maybe for the first time, we do.